if any team has a good shot at taking over this market, it's us. Regardless of your capital, if you put in the work and if you use the product and use it for what it's for, you can succeed and you can do really well.
Is it possible that the age of the centralized exchanges is ending?
Centralized exchanges were both the best and worst thing to happen to crypto.
Why do you think that it's so important for a user interface to be decentralized?
We saw FTX and the FTX collapse. That's the reason why. My hope in the future is that decentralized finance is the default and not something you need to know about.
What's your greatest ambition for Defi App?
That's a great question. My greatest ambition is that.
Excellent. Well, today we're here with Dan Greer, and I'll let you introduce yourself in a sec. But just in the pre-call, we were chatting about something that piqued my interest a little bit. You're in Barcelona right now. First of all, tell me who you are, where you're from, and then what are you doing in a hacker house in Barcelona right now?
Yeah, so great questions. I'm Dan. So I'm the co-founder of Defi App. I am a designer through and through, also a developer too, but my heart lies in design. At Defi App, I do everything product, so I lead the product team. So pretty much everything you see when you interface with Defi App. We flew a bunch of people out to just outside of Barcelona. So our team is very distributed all over the world. And when we have crunch time periods like the one we're in right now, we fly everybody out and all work together from the same house. Mm-hmm. We sleep, eat together 24/7, work out, and then work on the product. And that's what we're doing right now.
It's cool. Obviously in crypto, there's a lot of distributed teams, but it does seem like the effective teams do take time to get together. Or have kind of strong in-person components. I can think of several teams that kind of operate that way.
Yeah, it's cool because it allows you to get the best people in the world. You're not limited by borders. But then when and for the most part, we're extremely productive. But then when you need like high collaboration, high communication, fly everybody together and work from the same place.
I kind of like that hybrid setup too, because like I know you're highly location kind of independent. You like to travel a lot. I'm kind of the same way. But at the same time, sometimes I do desire like an in-person structure. Actually, I just had my editor out to where I'm in Mexico right now, and we hung out for a week, and we're working together for a week. Nice. Just to kind of like, connect and figure out how we work together. And it was so super productive. He's kind of new to the team, so yeah, that's cool. And so what are you crunching on? What's crunch time for?
I can't say much, but it's very, very exciting. Very soon here.
Phenomenal. Okay. Interesting. I'll say that. I like to start off these podcasts with a bit of a spicy take. You guys are building kind of like a do everything DeFi app. You're not the first people to work on this problem. And there are a lot of high profile teams that are working on this problem. High profile teams that in some cases have more funding or more experience. Why do you think you guys are capable of taking on this space and winning this space potentially? And are you trying to win this space, or do you think this will be more of a shared ecosystem?
Yeah, so it's a big pie, and the pie is going to 100x from here, and we're all just, there's plenty of space for plenty of people. But yeah, we have an incredible team that we've hired with, all kinds of consumer backgrounds, Web3 backgrounds, deep crypto backgrounds, but then also like Web2 like backgrounds. So it's a really good combination of people, and really the kind of people that you need to build the centralized experience, but entirely on chain. So yeah, I definitely think that if any team has a good shot at taking over this market, it's us. There's like 600 million plus people on centralized exchanges right now that have, we call them crypto adjacent people. Like they are familiar with crypto. Obviously they've purchased it within a centralized experience, but have not been on chain yet, have not, dove into the deep side that is DeFi. Yeah, there's a lot of awesome teams. We've got, incredible competitors too, who are building some really awesome stuff. And I love that because, it's quite controversial. People have different opinions of competitors, but I love competition because I like to just be the best. And if somebody does something better than me, then I like to outbest them. So yeah, it's a fun, very competitive space. But I think we're onto something here. And like I said, I always tell the team, like, it honestly feels like we have lightning in a bottle here and we just have to run with it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I've kind of felt the same way. And I mean, I don't know if this is the right impression, but I kind of have the idea that you guys are kind of more of a grassroots, community oriented, kind of down to earth team. Is that a fair characterization, that you're kind of less like VC, backed than
Yeah,
other
yeah.
teams?
So definitely away from VC. But yeah, I like to think we're grassroots. It's definitely our personalities are very much that. We like to just build good products and have people come and use them. And if they don't enjoy it, tell us why they don't enjoy it so we can make it better. So yeah, very grassroots approach. You see that through everything we do. Like the community we built up to like 30 plus thousand people before we even had a product live. We had our community lead is incredible, Doran. Maybe you've seen him around. Um, he was hosting online poker nights. He was, doing all kinds of things just to engage people and keeps, telling them about what we were building. And then we kind of gave people, early access to the alpha. And yeah, it was very, very grassroots, very user driven. Like I said, I'm a designer and we're quite a design led team. The ratio of designers to developers is actually quite high for a startup of our size. So yeah, it's we're very user data driven, and I like to embody that in everything that we build because ultimately, the user experience is the most important thing.
Tell me about that design component. Where do you think that you guys are kind of differentiated from your competitors in this component, this aspect that's very important to you, design?
Yeah, so we are not afraid to. So there's a theme in crypto that has always existed, and I love this, and I don't want crypto to ever lose it. Which is, we're somewhat anarchists. We like to build the cars, and we like to show off all of the inner workings of the cars. We like to be so proud of the engine we've built. We've redesigned an engine. We like to show that off, right? Which is incredible, and I don't want crypto to ever lose that. But if you want to bring a billion people on chain, they don't need to see the engine. They just need to get in the car, turn the key, and drive. And so, we're focused on that experience there. Like, we're not people like to throw a bunch of knobs and dials onto every interface to allow you to customize and min-max everything. And we're just saying people want the best. The majority of people, the majority of the world just want the best experience. They want the Apple experience. And how do we just give that to them? How do we simplify it? How do we not worry about the those knobs and dials and just focus on getting the user from A to Z or getting them to accomplish the task at hand? And so, we've been very brutal about that. There's a lot of things that we say no to, but because of that, we're building a simplified experience that's like so easy your grandmother could do it. Anybody could dive into it and get familiar with that. My hope in the future is that decentralized finance is the default and not something you need to know about. It's there and you can double click and you can find out more information if you want to. Where the transparency is always there, but if you just want to, just focus on the top level, which is getting from A to Z, swapping for this token to that token, you don't need to know what chains it's going through or what providers it's going through. You just know that DefiApp has got your best interest at heart and it gets you there.
Right. It's actually an interesting component is like these highly technical teams that don't have such a strong UX focus are actually quite well served by an application like yours because it allows them to work on the thing that they got nerd sniped by, the highly technical component that's hard to, abstract, right? And we talk about chain abstraction, but there's also application abstraction built within your application. And they can kind of do that and like outsource the UX stuff to DeFi app. It kind of exactly. Is a new type of synergy.
Yeah, you can think of us as just focusing on the UX layer. We just focus on the application layer, like you said. It's just the front end, and let all of these people who are incredibly talented and very innovative on the tech focus on the protocol layer, and let them do that, build awesome stuff, and then we'll package it in a way that users can actually consume.
Mm-hmm. We talked a little bit about decentralized competitors. I'd like to talk a little bit about centralized competitors because they're kind of, in my mind, the original DeFi super app. Obviously not decentralized, but they have been able to capture this UX flow in a way that I think DeFi has never been able to do. Why do you think that it's so important for a user interface to be decentralized?
Yeah, so we saw FTX and the FTX collapse. That's the reason why. So I think the thing that's really interesting about decentralized finance is, with it being permissionless, it kind of sells itself. Like by the time a token or an opportunity in general lists on a centralized exchange, most of the opportunity is gone. If you want 100x, 1000x opportunities, they exist on chain. And centralized exchanges, because they are centralized and regulated, they're always going to be slower, right? And that's fine, right? They serve a purpose, which is, arguably, a more secure interface that's, it's insured, it's backed up, it's regulated. And so what DeFi, kind of stands for is just giving people safe access to that permissionless world. And honestly, while, there's competition between us and centralized exchanges, there's pretty much competition with us and any other any interface, because ultimately, like, what we're going after is the end user attention. Where do people spend their time? But like I said, this is a big pie. The pie is growing, and honestly, we're quite synergistic with every centralized exchange. It's like there are some things that you want to do on a centralized exchange, and there are some things that you want to do, on chain. Will that be the case forever? Will we become more competition or less competition in the future? I mean, we'll see. But for now, honestly, I see it as very synergistic. We're just extending the value that crypto has to offer to more people, which is giving them access to that permissionless world and those 100, 1000x opportunities.
So really, you view the biggest possible market as bringing those centralized exchange users on chain more than the crypto world. What you said, kind of crypto adjacent people.
Yeah. Definitely. I think giving them a taste for it. I think the big thing that holds people back from coming on chain is just it's scary and complex. I mean, you know all of the jargon that exists on chain. It's like, and we take it for granted because we're used to it, but it's like, man, wallets, chains, gas, bridges, like, what is all this crap, right? Like, there's just so much stuff. There's a whole mountain of jargon that you have to get through before you move your money on chain. And it's like, it's just such a massive hurdle that, of course, nobody's coming on chain, like, relative to who could be. But I think times are changing. We're seeing a lot of like Moonshot exploding and having millions of users, giving them some taste of on chain without feeling like on chain. And I think DeFi App is very, very well positioned for this future, where we make decentralized the default. Yeah,
it's interesting too around centralized exchanges. I don't know if this is just my personal kind of change in flows, or if this is a general secular trend, and maybe you can bring light to that. But I feel like lately centralized exchanges just have been on-ramps to me. And obviously, I think products like MoonPay have been incredibly successful. They're not trying to sell tokens necessarily. They're just trying to be a good on-ramp. I know other teams are building that out. Robinhood is really not focused around token selection as much as just being a good crypto on-ramp. So I think, like, is it possible? I guess the question would be: is it possible that the age of the centralized exchanges is ending?
I think it's an interesting take. I mean, there's always gonna be a place for them. I do think the tides are shifting. There's somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody told me one time that always stuck with me, that centralized exchanges were both the best and worst thing to happen to crypto. The best because they, simplified what crypto is into a simple Web2 account where you sign on and you fund it and now you can buy it. It introduced, millions of people to crypto before Web3 was even ready for it. The worst thing, because it kind of goes and undermines the entire ethos of this space and like everything that, Bitcoin set out to create. And I think it kind of taught people the wrong thing about crypto. And then, of course, made worse when you see like the FTX collapse and other centralized exchanges, being hacked and so on and so forth. So yeah, I think the tides are shifting. I think, and what I've seen is centralized exchanges are all competing to build a product like ours. They are slow, as big companies typically are, and regulation holds them back too, because they're not just building a brand new company. Anything they do with their decentralized product, controversial or not, impacts the bottom line on their main product, which is the centralized exchanges they offer.
They're cannibalizing it.
Right? So they are slow. It's just a classic tale of, David and the Goliath. So as a nimble startup with very talented people, hopefully we can move fast and seize this opportunity we have so far. But time will tell.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that nimble component because for some reason, you guys like came to market and had this like massive success. I don't know, was it the points program? Was it the community effort you guys were doing? I remember like around the launch of the product, you did like, I don't know, I think over $10 billion in volume maybe in the first month or couple of months. It was insane to see the level of traction you got. Like, why were you guys able to achieve that?
Yeah, I mean, think of a forest fire, right? It's not just one thing that starts the fire; it's multiple components. So yeah, definitely with us, the thing that started our forest fire is, definitely led by the community. We've got an incredibly passionate community. A lot of people who this just resonated behind. A lot of actual grandmas who are very familiar with crypto that are like. Have been trading. They're genuinely like. We had some early partnerships as well with communities like the Rose Tree community, which is just like a trading investing community, and ultimately just solving problems that they had themselves, issues that they run into and that they've experienced through the last few cycles. But yeah, and I think the gasoline though on that fire was the points program, was the degen arena. So we just ended season 1 recently, and congrats to everybody that partook in that. I think it was a very, very successful program. Helped us get a lot of virality, a lot of mind share, helped us climb the leaderboard on say Kaito. That was huge. We went straight into season 2. We are currently in season 2. And the goal with any points program should be that the season 1 leads to a bigger, more successful season 2. It's the same with every successful points program. We see that right now with Hyperliquid. It's funny because I was always actually I'm actually a lover of Hyperliquid. I think they've built an incredible product. I think the team there are very based. And when season 1 was happening, and technically I guess they're going into a season 3 right now because they had a surprise season 2. But anyway, when the initial seasons were happening, honestly, not many people were talking about Hyperliquid. It was just a very underrated product that was went under the radar for most people. And while I do think we had a lot of success with Defi App, and probably thanks to the how Hyperliquid went, I think a similar thing is happening with us. So I think season 2 is going to be huge, just like Hyperliquid. I think there's going to be an explosive mindshare with Defi App. We've got a lot of very, very fun things planned. So towards the end of June. Can't believe how fast this year is going by, but towards the end of June, we're going to launch Battle Royale, which adds a bunch of very fun game mechanics to Season 2. Up in the ante, there's going to be a jackpot for degens to be able to compete for factions to be able to compete. There's going to be, inclusions and exclusions. There's going to be tied into how voting works and being able to vote, and that influences the leaderboard. There's a lot of very, very fun mechanics coming in here that will allow everyone. We've tried to design the game so that it's fair, that regardless of your capital, if you put in the work and if you use the product and use it for what it's for, you can succeed and you can do really well.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. You mentioned Kaido, which I'm curious about, and then I know you guys did an Echo round as well. So kind of two interesting crypto native products that I think helped you guys gain mindshare. Why was using Echo and Kaido important to you guys, and how did that contribute into the general strategy?
Yeah, so Kaito, another incredible team. I think a lot of people in crypto, it's a big fire hose in crypto where whatever the spotlight on, everybody is crowding around and rushing towards. And people are always searching for that next big thing. And Kaito has really shone as this incredible, leaderboard, a great way to sort of distill the signal from the noise. And I was fortunate to hang out and meet with the team in Dubai. Very, very incredible team. And it built a lot of trust for us. It built, people were able to measure how we stacked up against competitors. We were able to, in some ways, vampire the attention from competitors, and even vice versa. So I think it really drew a lot of attention to this space and to the kind of product that we're building. Yeah, and sorry, what was the question?
The other platform was Echo. You guys raised an Echo?
Yes, an Echo. Yes, so Echo. We raised. I honestly forget now because there's so much going on and it's not my side of the company. But was it 2 million for the very first round. I have to follow up with the information on that. But basically, Echo as a community, though, as a platform, has been spectacular and honestly a large reason for the success of our early community. So, it brought to us a bunch of attention from very dedicated crypto folks, crypto natives. And I got to meet with a bunch of them when we had our dinner in Dubai that we hosted at Token 2049. And yeah, they were a lot of our very early users and, large benefactors from the season 1 campaign. And thanks to them, a lot of the volume that was traded through Defi App. Yeah, huge.
Yeah, we kind of saw that meta fall off a little bit, but it obviously creates a way to align long-term incentives. Like, I want this product to succeed. I'm a grassroots user that has invested in it. And I mean, it kind of parlays off the success of something like a meme or something, right? Where it's like the community member can drive awareness to this product, right? And I think that's much more of a cycle and a healthier alignment for the crypto space is I want to invest in this early stage product, and then I can kind of like,
and a big thing as well, I kind of mentioned this about how we approached the user feedback, but as soon as that round happened, it sold out in like 2 minutes or something ridiculously quick. And we started a Telegram group, and we've been having conversations with those folks and getting feedback directly. And they've been there since almost day one. Like they've been there assisting us the entire way, and that's been huge. It's honestly thanks to them, for how the UX has been so good.
Yeah, you mentioned a focus on user data. Is that the main user set that you guys go to when you're looking for something specifically?
It's a combination. So I like to take what's called the bullseye approach, which is it's actually a method stolen from the book Traction. It's incredible. You should definitely go read it, give it a read. Any startup founder should give that a read. But it's just this concept that like your product will always pivot. There's always a market you start with and a positioning you start with your product, and then you outgrow that market and you position either the product or the audience. Mm-hmm. And so for us, even though the majority, the mainstream audience is much larger and are not crypto natives and they need a much simpler interface, we just started off by solving our own problems as crypto natives and the problems of this Echo community that were themselves crypto natives. And so early feedback was just solving their problems. How do we make cross-chain trading seamless? But as we grow and as we scale, we're now speaking to a lot more people that are not crypto natives, speaking to people that are on centralized exchanges and have never really interfaced with DeFi. And the problems we solve for them are different than the crypto natives, but that's how the product keeps evolving, and that's how it positions itself for the larger audience. And you kind of just you take one user group at a time, and you're always data driven, the entire way.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, now that you're kind of like coming from this crypto native early audience, kind of like a minimum viable audience, and trying to parlay that into success in this like grand crypto consumer arena, what do you think are some of the biggest changes that you guys have had to think around the product?
Yeah, so crypto natives demand those knobs and dials I was talking about. So they demand, being able to see every little bit and piece. And like a lot of it is legit, and I always want to hear it because I like the challenge of thinking, how can I deliver a comprehensive experience that even professionals can benefit from, but in the simplest way possible. So I love to hear that feedback, and please guys, keep it coming. A lot of the times though, and this is speaking from like a UX designer standpoint, a lot of the times though, people don't know the best solution. They can describe to you the problems they're facing, and they may think they know the best solution, but that's oftentimes not the most innovative way to solve that problem. So, like we'll hear, hey, I would love to have knobs and dials for this or that, or like I want to have like a toggle so I can choose cheapest, best, fastest, and like all of these things that they're just used to seeing on existing platforms. But a lot of this stuff is just, it was designed once by somebody, maybe it solved a real problem then, and then it was copied by every other product. And now it's not because it's the best solution, And it's like, why hasn't this space grown? Why isn't there 1 billion people on chain? And I think things like this are the reason why. People don't want, like I said about the car, like people don't want to know about the engine and the inner workings of the engine. They just want to get in and they just want to drive. And so, yeah, that's the saying no to that feedback like that, or redesigning it, repackaging it in an innovative way that sometimes even requires a little bit of adjustment from crypto natives. Like they just need to get used to the fact that they don't have a bunch of knobs and dials, and they just have to trust the autopilot. But we try to solve for that. We've always taken this double click approach where, when trading across chains with multiple tokens, you can click into it. You see this beautiful routing diagram that shows you your asset or assets. Sometimes we could be sourcing your ETH from multiple chains and bringing it into one single meme coin on the other end. So yeah, we've tried to solve the problem for everybody, and always stay grounded in what crypto is all about with transparency. But on the top level, try to provide as abstracted of an experience as possible.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. You guys, I going back to MoonPay, I think MoonPay raised like $400 million or some insane amount.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
You guys, and they've been working on their products for like many years now. You guys raised a much smaller amount of capital and are probably focused on a different part of your life cycle. Why do you think that you guys will be able to continue to compete without such a massive funding round, probably trying to like do things like go to TGE a bit earlier than other teams?
Apple and Airbnb were built in like garages and basements. Yeah, I think actually, I think they have a different reason for raising that much capital. I'm sure it's probably part of their, liquidity. But I am skeptical of startups. I invest as well on the side. Like, I'm skeptical of startups that raise too much. I think that raising too much money can be disastrous for companies because they forget that they are startups. They stop being lean, they hire too many people, they get distracted, they lack leadership. There's just a long laundry list of reasons why I think you are more likely to die as a company, as a product, if you raise too much than you are if you don't raise enough. Because if you don't raise enough, it forces you to be lean and just focus on the the 20% that is 80%. Focus on the needle movers, and I think that's something that I pride ourselves on. I mean, we're not really tiny by any means. We're like a 30-person team, but like we've raised enough to build the product we're building. We turned on fees. We charge a tiny fee. It's like 0.01% or 2% or something like that. It's tiny. I think there's a lot more opportunities in the future, but seeing that and seeing the volume still picking up is great signal to noise for us. And also, with Defi App, and this is the honest truth, and honestly very bullish about Defi App, is it is a company that has huge revenue potential. Like, we're already doing incredible, but it has huge revenue potential. And that is extremely bullish because it means we can continue to innovate, continue to grow, and continue to offer an awesome product to people. There's a sustainable future in sight. So yeah, I think, I am very skeptical of companies that raise too much, and I think we've raised the perfect amount for the team size. And generally speaking, if you build an awesome product and if you've got good revenue potential, raising is easy. It's not a difficult thing to do. Right. People throw money at you. We said no to most people.
That's cool to hear, and I know a lot of really successful teams that maybe we'll chat about later that have had a similar attitude around fundraising and around being lean at different stages of their life cycle. You talk about value accrual. Previously, we were like fat protocols. The layer one is going to accrue all the value. Applications. Why build it? Later, it became like wallet infrastructure, or like things like you're building these abstraction apps, right? Why build at this layer of the stack to maximize value capture?
This is a bit of my secret sauce, but honestly, it's not that secret because so I believe that that all that matters for consumer products is owning end user attention, and in crypto, owning volume. I believe that there is a phenomenon that happens in every industry. They kind of go through this like life cycle, and what we kind of experienced in the last couple of cycles of crypto are a bunch of protocol level products building front ends and trying to be consumer and also infrastructure. And it's great. There's a lot of innovations that come out of that, but ultimately companies thrive when they do one thing and they do that one thing really, really well. And so this cycle, with a big focus on abstraction, we're also seeing these teams that built out these protocols focus less on the front end and start to just sort of fade and compress down as the infrastructure layer. And that's where, products like ours are surfacing. And so we're focused on the front end user experience, again, owning user attention, which is valuable to these protocols. They want users, they want volume. They focus on what they do best and integrate that into us. And so, we aren't reinventing any wheels by building some new L1 and new fundamentals. We're just plugging into existing rails that already work extremely well and solve user needs. And we are unifying everything with a simple experience that users can use. They no longer have to use 50 different DEX products that all look very similar but slightly different. And those 50 teams, those 50 companies don't need to maintain their DEX products that all look very, very similar and do very similar things when they have a protocol to maintain. So it's very synergistic.
Previously, we saw kind of like an L1 and infra premium. It seems that that's decaying, and founders and investors are hesitant to approach that space. Then we have the app layer, which has kind of historically been maybe had like a slight discount, right? Like if a 50-person team building an L1 commands a much higher valuation than a 50-person team building a perps DEX or something, right? But we're seeing that go away, and we're seeing that change. What we haven't seen a lot of examples of are these apps like what you're building, right? These abstraction apps, these user interface, not a lot of tokens for wallets, not a lot of tokens for interfaces like yours. Do you think that these will be able to capture like the same type of valuations as layer ones, or will they be treated more as apps, or will they be treated as something entirely differently?
Yes, I think they will. Like I said, the most important thing with the space is end user attention. It's where are people spending their time. Now, L1s and infrastructure layers are always going to be highly valued, as they should be, right? But like we definitely saw this last cycle and then continued into early this cycle. There's just too much saturation. There's just too much fragmentation between these L1s. Everyone's competing for the same space. Ultimately, what we need is more top of the funnel acquisition. We just need more people coming into the space to use, because it trickles down, right? And so the more infrastructure, more L1s are not going to bring more people into the space. You need consumer apps. You need apps like ours that actually solve the problem that's stopping those people from coming in. So yeah, I do think the valuation is going to be extremely high for products like ours, and especially when DefiApp in its ideal future and its full maturity is it acts as a free market that protocols, apps, talented builders, they can build their protocols and somewhat permissionlessly, we'll have to decide on this later, there'll probably be some approval process, but can somewhat permissionlessly build their products into DefiApp, where DefiApp just acts as this like operating system, again, just focuses on the UX and the front end, and they build the apps and plug into DefiApp. So there's a lot of value if they are all competing to be the best DEX, so that they get rooted the most on DefiApp. Users get the best experiences. DEXs compete and become better DEXs, and then DefiApp catches a little slither in the middle, which is our takeoff fee, which we then hopefully with governance approval can share with home stakers. So yeah, it's I do think there's a lot of opportunity for us.
And really, it kind of actually redefines the crypto ecosystem as we see it now, with kind of infra and layer one kind of at the bottom of the stack, then the application interfacing with like the user layer or something, which is highly abstracted. You guys still integrate wallet infrastructure though, which is something I'm curious about. Do you think that will ever be kind of brought into the fold at DefiApp?
Yeah, so we do still. Our ethos is just come as you are. If you are most likely a crypto native that is used to using your Rabby or your MetaMask or whatever, you can come in, you can connect it, and you can get trading the same way you do with any other interface. That's honestly just a UX thing. It's just you see it, and so you see Rabby again, and so you click it, and it's really easy. But ultimately, if you use our embedded wallets, it's the same level of decentralization. It's the same level of self-custody. You can export your keys from it. You can take them elsewhere. It's just a superior experience. And so our thing is like, we're not going to force people into using that. They want to learn, their money's on the line. So we allow them to figure it out at any point during their user experience. And then when they're ready for it to make that switch seamlessly into the embedded wallet, they can just deposit their funds and they're good to go. And the way the embedded wallet works is, it uses social login or email. So um, you can just enter in your email address and we'll generate 2 embedded wallets for you, and you can just trade seamlessly across all of the EVM chains in Solana. And the whole thing was that we want it to feel like a Web2 account. We want it to just feel like this is an account, this is just my email address. But again, by default, it's decentralized. By default, it's self-custody. The superior experience like really shines when you realize it's entirely gasless or gas sponsored, and you honestly don't really notice chains. Chains are just, this lingo of chains is just never brought in. You just think in terms of assets, the way you do if you were using Coinbase or Binance. So again, come as you are, whoever you are, when you're ready, switch over to an embedded wallet. It's a much better experience, but hey, no pressure. Use the product with whatever tools you're already used to.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, something worth noting, like in DeFi app, like if you have ETH on Solana, BNB, ETH mainnet, and Arbitrum, all of it shows up as the same singular ETH balance, which is something that's very cool. How do you think about owning the user? In crypto, there's been very low cost of switching. I can just put the same wallet in this perpdex or that perpdex, and the cost of changing products is very, very low, which makes it hard to own a user. But you guys are kind of trying to be this spot where it's like, no, if a user is interacting with crypto, they're interacting via DeFi app. What do you do with your product and UX to make sure that user kind of returns?
Yeah. So we've designed DeFi apps so that if you hate what we're providing, if you don't like what we're doing, you can just export your keys and you can go. You are welcome to leave. That is okay. I hope you stay. I hope you tell me why you're leaving so that I can make it better. But we've done it that way because, again, we're just focused. We're just in the game of providing the best experience, not trapping people in. The typical way that like consumer products in Web 2 work is they build network effects, which is essentially like the product gets better. And the better it gets, the more users it gets, and then the more users it gets, the better the product gets, and it creates this sort of flywheel. But a large part of that mechanism is locking users in, locking their data in. Of course, thankfully, with crypto, that's not the case. Thankfully, they can just export their keys and go elsewhere. We build network effects on pure value. So by owning the end user attention, which is just literally you spend your time on us, we then provide that time and any volume you trade to those underlying providers and protocols, which is an incentive for them to come over and integrate in DeFi app, which makes DeFi app better, so that hopefully it solves your problem better and hopefully you stay. And so our whole thing to keep you on DeFi app is just being the best product, being the most convenient, to the point where you're like, why would I switch elsewhere? I've got everything here. I've got all of my yield farms here. I have DeFi app cash, and I'm able to spend my crypto in a debit card immediately. I can, onboard into crypto here. I can just do everything here. Why would I go elsewhere? And that's the product that we're building. Obviously there's a bunch of mechanisms that we have to build to keep the flywheel going and build those network effects. But yeah, it's really just like what product has the most offering, what experience is the easiest to use that you're already used to, and you don't want to go elsewhere.
You brought up yield. I know you guys have a lending and earn beta that's right around the corner. Anything you can tell us about that?
Yeah, so we're going to keep it really simple to start off with. We want to make sure that security is paramount. So Aave will be lending and borrowing. We'll probably integrate like Morpho as well. I don't know. It'll be like a fast follow. It's in alpha right now. It's being used. We're being kind of just in the testing phase. We wanted to first focus on TGE related things, but as soon as that's out the way, we'll get back to shipping. We also had to delay the mobile launch as well, which I'm very, very excited for mobile. So the order of events is it's going to be mobile, and then lending and borrowing, and then yield farming. And like I said, we'll keep the list very small. But I think the future of all of those products, but especially the yield farming, is going to be somewhat permissionless. Like protocols will be able to apply to integrate with us, follow a framework, and then integrate their interface, their protocols into the DeFi app interface.
Mm-hmm. How closely do you work with teams? Is it more about a DeFi app integration into something like Morpho, or do you hope for it to someday be teams are coming to DeFi app and integrating?
Yeah, so the beginning, with most products like ours, like marketplace like products, is we do the work ourselves because we want to make sure that the quality is extremely high, that we provide the best experience, and we also sort of are able to do those user interviews, be data driven, and figure out what is a good framework to follow. Once we have that, then opening it up, right? So we're kind of exploring that with our spot trading right now. So we've got several providers that we're integrated in, several dexes that we're integrated with, bridges, and we've handpicked those, through trial and error, and we've handpicked those, and our algorithm will just route users through the best possible route, depending on what assets they're swapping, what chains, where the liquidity's at, and so on and so forth. But what I'd like to do is open that up, share those stats so that other dexes can come to DeFi app. They can see a dashboard. They can see Relay performs these swaps under however many seconds of finality, and they charge this fee. So then that protocol can apply, and they can integrate their dex, and it will instantly get listed with our algorithm. And if they can start to compete for those routes, and then users get that better experience. The provider is integrated into us, and then DeFi app gets to also provide a better experience ultimately for the users.
Phenomenal. I'll ask one more question, and then we'll get into the wrapping up kind of phase. But what's your greatest ambition for DeFi app?
Yeah, that's a great question. I obsess over DeFi app. It's all I think about. My greatest ambition is that, though. It's building out the operating system that unifies the space. So there are, millions of incredible products built by very, very talented people. It's very fragmented, though. Like, if I want to go and find some new project, how do you discover projects in crypto today? Like, you have to be plugged into into Twitter. Twitter's sort of like this watering hole for crypto, and it's like better Google searching. You got to avoid the minefield of hacks and scams and all that stuff. And like, this space needs a Google, right? Like, we have the internet. So for a lot of people, Google is the internet, but it's not. Like, the internet is so much more, right? And so before Google came along, you had a bunch of web pages that you had to go directly to via the URL, and go connect to IP addresses and stuff like that. And that's kind of what like DeFi is today. And so we want to be the Google, this layer that you can just come into. It's your first interface. You discover all these products. It's the same UX, and Google in many ways has shaped the internet because of how successful they've been. So that's my future is this world where we kind of curate things to make it safe. There's some tiers of applications people can go through. So there's one that's like higher review. It's got a high trust score that goes in there, and you can use those products. But then there's like lower trust score, but it's totally permissionless. And so anybody can come along with a laptop in their mum's basement and build some innovative world-changing product, and it's plugged into DeFi app as a whole. And users are always safe, but not restricted. So
you never want to be a gatekeeper of some.
We never want to be a gatekeeper.
Product.
No, we're a curator, we're a guide, but we don't gatekeep anything, and that's the future.
Yeah, similar to kind of Google. That's a very cool vision. I'm interested by that. Cool. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about TGE. I know it's kept quite close to the chest, but anything you can tell us about TGE? Any hints you can give? What are you excited about?
Oh no, you're gonna get me into trouble. No, there really is not much I can say. All I can say is that it's very close. It's definitely weeks, not months. I've said that a few times, but it's much closer than most people think. And again, like I said, the whole point of season 1 is to have a much bigger season 2. Everybody benefits from that. The team, the community, the season 1 benefactors. What I can say is, based on governance and votes, we want to provide as much value as we can back to. So the token's going to be called Home, and we want to provide as much value back to Home stakers as we can. But that's about as much as I can say. Sorry that it's very vague, but all I can say is just stay tuned.
I'm happy. I'm happy with just getting that out of you. So that's very cool. Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. We'll let you get back to shipping. I do want to say though, every once in a while we have a founder that leaves me refreshed, and that was you today. A founder who's worried about product and not price, and not didn't even talk about market conditions, is not making excuses on why the users aren't here, is trying to meet the user where they're at. And I think founders that think like that are the ones that have had the most success, and I think you will have great success. So thanks so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to future product launches and token coming out of DeFi app. Thanks so much for being here.
I appreciate it, Jack. Thank you very much.